Hello, this is Skylit Lake reading The Infinitely Curious Woman by Charari. Chapter 3 Twilight. Sakura is 18 when she finally accepts what she has become. There's a dog in her nose before she can sense him, so she stops in a clearing, waiting for him to make his move. Just 2 minutes later, he steps out from between two trees, arms loosely hanging from his body in a feigned show of nonchalance. She doesn't speak up and waits for him to say his piece. Kakashi looks her over before he does anything, taking note of the lack of cloak. Seems to focus on the ribbon for a second, until his gaze gets stuck on the ring. He asks her if she's still with them, and Sakura answers honestly, explains that they disbanded and that she's wandering the elemental nations now. Truth be told, she's more of a meanderer with no goals in sight, which, while mildly distressing, comes with the advantage of at least being on her own. The occasional bounty is enough to feed her until she figures out where to go and what to do. He seems doubtful but doesn't argue with her, gives a sharp nod and lingers. She's known him long enough to recognize the signs of an emotionally stunted man working his way up to asking the really important questions and decides to humor him. A few breaths later, he makes his inquiry, oddly apprehensive and taut like a piece of string. He wants to know why she had come back for Hokage-sama. Sakura clicks her tongue in annoyance and corrects him by saying that she didn't come back for the Hokage. She came back for Tsunade. Kashi is as confused as she's ever seen him, and out of curiosity, she asks him if the blonde ever told him why Sakura left. If she knows one thing about this man, it's that he's loyal to a fault, and Tsunade is a good leader. He would die for her if she gives him something to think about. So she gives him something to think about. He offers her to come back, tells her she's been pardoned, that Sasuke returned, that there's no need for her to run anymore. She straight up asks him why he thinks she's running. Sakura doesn't owe this man anything. The man that forgot her, the man that never looked at her, and that's what she tells him. She tells him that she doesn't care for his village or its people, all of which were happy to leave her to fend for herself. She tells him that she wasn't chased out but left on her own volition, that she came back for the only person she's loyal to, the only person she loves, the only person that loves her back, loved her enough to let her go. She tells him not to follow her, since he can't keep up with her any longer, and that he should really know this by now. He seems pained, lost, and defeated, but she has no sympathy for him. Let go of the past, Kakashi. You can't be happy until you forget about me, is her last piece of advice for him, and this time, when she leaves, he doesn't move. The summit happens, and Sakura is near, but not too near. Near enough to learn that Toby is back and looking for war, that Sasuke killed Shimura and left him for the Akatsuki. She's walking on the border between sound and fire when a tiny origami bird flies towards her from the sky and settles into her open palm. Conan calls, and the promise of her old lab and a new sample is motivation enough. Sakura arrives 3 days later, moderately surprised that she seems to be the only one that's been recalled. The blue-haired female explains that Akatsuki hasn't been reinstated and their request is of a more personal nature. She realizes what that means soon enough. There's a man, more dead than alive, suspended in a giant apparatus. The sight is almost harrowing. His name is Nagato, and he has the eyes of God. Toby will come soon and take them from him, and if he does, he will raze the world to the ground, and that cannot happen. Sakura does what they ask her, takes both eyes, and sends Nagato into peaceful and eternal rest, and runs. She finds temporary respite in one of his old labs. Time is of the essence, and she is under no illusion that she can hide from Toby forever. Toby who can teleport, be everywhere and anywhere at once, who always hides under his mask. She has a sample of Nagato's blood and starts on getting a read of his Senju Uzumaki heritage while carefully studying the eyes. The first thing she notices is that, while compatible, their DNA is completely different. Whoever those eyes belong to, it wasn't Nagato. If Toby wants them, he must know. Unfortunately, Sakura has never obtained a sample of the walking and talking split personality, which really quite frustrates her, until she stumbles over a very specific section that she swears she's seen before. She gathers all her notes, skims them as fast as she can, searching for that specific sequence. Well, shit. Only one of the two living Uchiha is easily available, and she hates that it's not her favorite. What she hates even more is that the one she can reach is holed up in fucking Konohagakure. Just a few weeks after her talk with Kakashi, and she already has to go back on her words. Sakura thinks morosely as she gathers her things, preparing for a 2-day journey she doesn't want to undertake. Heaven help her, she curses, racing through the woods at high speed, because she doesn't care for this bloody village, yet she keeps coming back for reasons not under her control. She doesn't want war. It's mostly self-interest, but she also thinks of Tsunade, Sasori, even Itachi. All three bled and fought in wars, and all three are sick of it, she knows. And unfortunately, as fate will have it, Sakura holds the key to make sure it will never happen in the first place. She cares little for village protocol or silly things like security procedures. She sprints through the gates and ignores the guards, loses the anbu, and enters her office through the window. There's a second when nothing happens, and then pandemonium. Sakura, visibly unimpressed, has 3 tanto at her neck. Her hands restrained, but really draws the line at being pushed to her knees, and privately delights in being far stronger than any of the soldiers currently trying to force her to the ground. Tsunade looks good, she thinks. Young, healthy, and also enraged. Sakura speaks up and says that she is in possession of classified information concerning the war, and that she requests a private audience with the Hokage. As she moves her throat, some of her skin slices against the blade, causing her to bleed for a single moment, before the wound closes again. She's way past the point where she needs hand signs to control and mend her own body. Tsunade's fury is quiet, seething, and cold. But Sakura knows she has her. This woman would never sabotage the war effort in favor of holding on to old grievances. It doesn't take long for the anbu to be dismissed, the office sealed, the metaphorical blinds drawn. Without making a single sound, Sakura reaches into a pouch and places a sealed vial onto Tsunade's desk. When her fingers move and reveal the contents, the blonde's breath stills. Sasuke is in a right tonight, and any other day it would be hilarious. He throws a fit, then another, and his lack of manners as well as the insulting way he talks to Tsunade makes her own hackles rise. Eventually, he is forced to sit still on the examination table as Sakura works and Tsunade watches. The DNA profiles of Itachi, Mikato, and Fugaku are laid out on a nearby table, next to Sasuke's own, and the unknown origin of her Amaterasu strain. She compares all of them with the Rinnegan, and talks to Tsunade, trying to be as open as possible while also keeping the specifics of her research to herself. Even with all the things Sakura doesn't say, the blonde regards her calmly, and she can almost hear her thinking. "You've come really far," she notes, and watches Sakura inject the eye sample into a dead body that was so graciously provided for her before adjusting the pre-existing genetic makeup. "Not even he was capable of this," she adds, and in her own way, that's probably meant as a compliment. Sakura nods in agreement. Once they have a working host, she begins the time-consuming process of refining its essence. She has results 3 days later, but Tsunade is not exactly happy with them. The easiest way to deal with the eyes is to implant them into someone who can deal with Toby. Considering that most people can't, it's best to choose someone who can run, hide, but still has ties they can use to call upon aid when needed. The choice is obvious. Tsunade disagrees. It makes Sakura remember why she ever left in the first place. So she tells her the name of all possible hosts. Sasuke, Itachi, he's alive? Sakura. She stops for a moment. Tsunade. That forces her to reveal Nagato's heritage and the glaring similarities between his DNA and the blonde's. Apparently, none of the names is an option, so Sakura is back to square one and ever so slightly resentful. When all of this is done and over with, she'll go back to that abandoned lab in Sound, so she can do what she damn well wants for the rest of her days. Sasuke confronts her 2 days later, in the middle of a restaurant, with all their year mates and some other Chunin and Jonin in attendance. He's doing this on purpose, Sakura realizes as she bites her teeth and narrows her eyes. It's a standoff between two traitors, except one is hated more than the other, has no intentions of redeeming themselves, and has changed much, much more than the other ever has. It's ugly and heated, and nobody steps in. He demands to know what atrocities she has committed, how far she has gone to obtain the ability to use the Sharingan's exclusive dojutsu, what kind of monster she has turned into. With the last shred of composure, she hisses back and asks him to look into the mirror, for if she is a monster, so is he. At least she never surrendered to a master, played his little pet snake, and crawled in the dirt for a man infinitely more worthy of admiration than Sasuke would ever be. She says these words and pushes him over the edge. He roars, activates his Sharingan, and draws chakra from his seal. Sakura sneers and surges forward, faster than anyone can react, digs her fingers into the skin surrounding his curse seal, forces her chakra beneath his skin, and wraps it around the sticky tendrils of the mark, and tears. Sasuke falls to his knees and howls in pain, hand clutching his neck, searching for something that's not there anymore. Something Sakura has taken and crushed with her dainty little fingers. "I can unmake you, Uchiha," she growls, grabs his chin and tilts it upward to force him to look into her eyes and see her. I know he scared you. I know he still does. Don't waste your nightmares on a dead man when it's me you should be terrified of. When she dreams later that night, for the first time in her life, she hears the laugh, smells lavender, and sees his face. The Rinnegan is a thing of fairy tales and horror stories. Sakura used to think that the Sharingan was the ultimate focusing iris, yet it pales in comparison to this dojutsu. Records on the Byakugan are sparse, but what little information is available suggests that the Rinnegan contains aspects of both Kekigenkai and then some. She's far from being a saint, and calling her morals skewed would be kind, yet in the end, she finds herself in Tsunade's desk, telling her that those eyes need to be destroyed. She has to present her case, tells the blonde of everything the eyes can do, everything they could theoretically be engineered to do, and that no man, woman, or child should ever possess that kind of power. Tsunade respects her decision. When they make their way to the lab to burn the eyes, they're gone. Madara is back. Also, Yakushi is still alive and kicking. She's not sure which of the two is a bigger disappointment. There are two front lines now, skirmishes, battlefields. Sakura has made it a point to stick with Tsunade wherever she goes, and neither Kumo nor the other nations are happy to see her. But thankfully she is ignored in favor of concentrating the war effort. Well, ignored by most. The Mizukage brings a tall and blue half-shark man who seems genuinely happy to see Sakura, claps her on the back, and greets her with the air of an old friend. It is surprisingly easy to be in his company. Kisame is not the biggest surprise though. Sakura is what he says in the middle of the room, completely disregarding the presence of the cage, their bodyguards, and the entire war council. He looks at her out of amber eyes, face still and unchanged as if frozen in time, forever eternal. His eyes move to the ribbon that's tied around her neck, and his lips curl upward around the edge, self-satisfied and smug. The look suits him. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she's aware that time passes, but the longer she looks at him, the more she feels like everything around her has stopped. He's her most favorite canvas, she thinks, vividly recalling her bloody handprint on his bare chest. She remembers the beat of his heart, his blood coating her fingers and sticking underneath her nails, the way his body was stitching itself back together. Her face feels hot, and with pure horror she realizes that she's blushing as her fingers twitch and her breath runs short. He looks like he knows exactly what she's thinking. He looks like he doesn't even mind. It's under his fingers that she comes undone, hands slippery and red, the stench of copper in the air, the taste of blood on her lips. The moment is short and etches itself into her memory. They part without words, like they are strangers, but Sakura carries his bloody mark around her neck, just like she has left hers on him. Time resumes, and she is glued to Tsunade's sight, won't leave her for any reason, and follows her into battle. Madara's face when she sends Amaterasu at him is priceless, and takes some of his figures of the other Kage, which, honestly, is fine. Sakura burns through Naruto's chakra, has packed an entire sealing scroll full of shots, and soon empties her first pouch. She never used so much over such a short period of time, but it makes her virtually invincible. Nothing can get a hit on her. She can dodge precision attacks and large area effect ninjutsu, sprints from one end of the battlefield to the other within moments, and burns through entire stretches of Zetsu clones with her black fires of death. This is her mistake, she realizes. She leaves her for a second. That's all Sakura needs. Sakura is 18 and a half, and bowed over Tsunade's bisected body when she finally meets him. There are other bodies, other cages all around her, and Sakura's in the middle of the circle with Tsunade's two halves right in front of her, hastily drawn lines forming a ritual seal anchored with her own blood. She is the heart and the mind, the lung and the brain. She's blood and chakra, bones and muscle. She's life and death, and the master of both. Sakura closes her eyes and lets her head fall back, one hand on the woman's forehead, the other on her waist, senses guiding her chakra through lines drawn in blood into 4 other bodies. Her mind is split and her focus intense, and she's losing her sense of self as she's breathing with 6 lungs, working with 12 hands, and has to regulate all their heartbeats. When her own chakra is gone, she uses what's left of Naruto's and violently hammers it in shape, pushes through pain, and drains herself as brain activity resumes. Heart stabilizes, wounds close. It's when Tsunade's eyes flutter open that she finally lets herself stop, cuts the connection, draws what meager chakra is left back into her own body. Her hands shake as she fumbles with the latch of her pouch and reaches for her last shot, jams the needle into her thigh, and pushes down on the plunger. They were dead. A voice says from behind, and she is too tired to recognize it. Yes, she replies with a pained gasp and carefully unfolds her legs from beneath her body, hissing in pain. Who are you? The voice now asks, and Sakura uses the last of her energy to turn around. Her world spins and then stops. Sakura is 18 and a half when the war ends. When she wakes, she's alone. She feels like she's drowning and slowly coming up for air as the dull noise all around her sharpens and takes shape. She smells blood and wonders if by now the smell just sticks, if it'll follow her wherever she goes. Sakura opens her eyes, is met by open sky, a pleasant tingle in her limbs. There are 3 different kinds of chakra in her system, and it confuses her. There's Naruto's, hers, and Tsunade's. It's the latter that gives her pause. There's a glaring gap in her memory that leaves her uneasy, causes her to shift ever so slightly, but it's enough to alert people to her waking presence. They're blonde and black, honey and yellow, Tsunade and Orochimaru. Sakura doesn't know where to look first, caught between the 2 giants in her life, even if one of them isn't quite aware of it. It's ironic, she thinks, that it takes war and death for them to come together like this. Or perhaps it's not ironic at all. Blood stains her hands. All 3 of them breathe and deal in lives. One gives, another takes, and the third is the balance that ties them together. You can't tell anyone, is the first thing Tsunade says in the seclusion of her tent, and Sakura isn't sure who exactly she's talking to. She never shares more than strictly needed, hoards her knowledge like other ninja hoard ninjutsu. Orochimaru doesn't say much, perhaps prefers to watch and study her instead. He seems more than just a little amused by the cut of her hair and the ring on her left pinky. Tsunade takes a moment to inform Sakura that she's basically slept through the conclusion of the war, missed the birth and the subsequent destruction of the GP, but none of that sounds interesting. She lives, they both live, and that's all she has to know. Apparently, someone wanted to resurrect a deity, but failed. And this is where Orochimaru decides to be witty and says that maybe they should have asked Sakura to do the job instead. Which reminds her, it's both a surprise and not. She's been partially resurrecting people for the better part of 3 years. The unexpected part is that all it took was a bit of fear, trauma, and sheer panic to get rid of the last mental blocks in her head. I crossed the final barrier, she says, and Tsunade looks at her with dread in her eyes. She sleeps and dreams, and her world is two spheres of night and day, circling each other in something closely resembling a dance. She looks at her feet and stands on a red line that separates the black expanse on her left from the white fields on her right. The red moves and slivers, reaching for her, paints her hand, and embraces her like a lover would, holding her tight and fills her up. There's chaos and order, death and life, in the red that bathes her world in blood. The war is over, peace reign. Orochimaru is asleep when she begins the procedure, and young and healthy when he wakes up. Tsunade looks like she's in her mid-20s, and nobody knows that she doesn't use her henge anymore. Sasori is 36 when he dies in the war, and 20 when she brings him back. Sakura is 18 years, 10 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days old when she dies. Sakura is 18 years, 10 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days old when she wakes up. They are spring and winter, two sides of the same coin, and tied together by her, who is both and neither, their ultimate creation, their greatest achievement. They sit beside her as the sun sets on the place that gave birth to all three of them, and watches as the world moves, changes, while they forever stay the same. Hey fishies, I hope you enjoyed this last final chapter of this incredible series, because even though it was short, like, okay, not short, they show roughly until it'll be like 2 hours or maybe 3 hours, depending on how long this final episode chapter comes out, because I'm recording chapter 2, and which was divided into two recording sessions, one at night, one next morning. And this recording session, which is recorded after Hiccups of Kota's Adventures in UA, which I hope you guys like that one. Anyway, I haven't recorded my Super Science videos, and it looks like most people will not want to continue that series, so Deku Sensei will probably be coming up soon. Anyway, like I was saying, excellent series. The thematic elements, the almost poetic way it talks and tells the story, the way it makes you feel in those gaps to learn what's going on. It is a beautiful series, and I applaud Charari for writing such a good series. And like, wow. Anyway, just a quick note. This series was inspired by Icarus, a Harry Potter series. That is my alarm for me to go to sleep. I'm gonna leave that in. Anyway, this series was inspired by a Harry Potter series named Icarus, which once I get permission from the author, I will definitely be recording and releasing, because that's a good series as well. I liked it. I'm There's a little scene that went around when I was in. No, that makes me sound like when I was in year 12, which is like end of high school, that I'll either create the cure of cancer or become a mad scientist who gets arrested for doing illegal experiments. And I'm starting to see why now, because the more I love these almost scientific, almost deeply thematic, scientific kind of fanfics, it just gets me all wired up and this all excited and all giddy because the possibilities. Anyway, because of this, I decided to write my own fanfic. It's following the themes of same idea, different fandom. I'm writing one for MHA. It's called Kyokai. It might be interesting. It might be 20 chapters. It might not be. Who knows? Either way, I'm wired on caffeine so much. That's why I'm so talking super fast, and probably can't be able to sit still. So I'm probably going to end this now and just calm my brain down for a bit. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!